What would you do if you thought you might have glimpsed a mythical creature on the edge of a forest? In tonight's episode, you'll meet Amy Bue, a woman whose momentary sighting and curiosity inspired years of research. Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Maroc, and on this episode, I'm going to introduce you to Amy Bue. Amy is a teacher, writer, and Bigfoot researcher based in Ohio. I first met Amy at Small Town Monsters Monster Fest in June, where she was one of the speakers. And I'm so thrilled she agreed to come on the podcast to talk about her research and share some personal experiences. Let's dive in with Amy. Hi, Amy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you, and I'm doing well too.
Good.
I I want to talk to you about a few different things, specifically and primarily Project ZooBook. But before we get into Project ZooBook, I'd love to know a little bit of your history and how you got interested in cryptozoology and any experiences you might have had leading up to what you're doing now.
Okay, sure. Well, I often tell people that especially when I talk to someone like yourself, or if I'm speaking somewhere, it just um they're always like pinch me moments because I never in a million years thought that I would be doing something like this or anything like this. Because I had heard about Bigfoot my entire life, I saw In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries, and then later Harry and the Hendersons and all those things. So, Bigfoot is a part of pop culture now. And so I knew about it, but never ever took it seriously until in 2012, I saw something really strange. I was in a car going over a bridge and over a body of water in Ohio, of all places, which is where I live, and I saw something standing along the shoreline as we were traveling over this bridge. And I was like, what in the world is that? Thinking about it as we drove past, it looked exactly like what I would think Bigfoot would look like if, you were driving over there and it was standing there. But I don't know what it was. We were going over that bridge at a, good pace, and it was at least 100 yards away, but it was very large. It was very wide, all one color, uniform in color, definitely alive because it moved. No muzzle, it wasn't a bear for sure. We do have occasional bears in the area, but not often at all. But I know what a bear looks like. I've seen several black bear in my life. Um, could it have been somebody dressed up? I suppose so. So that's where I'm always a bit skeptical about things, even things that I've experienced. And I don't know what it was, but it looked to me like what I would have thought Bigfoot looked like. And it doesn't even matter what it was, I will say, because that is what my jumping off point was. So that was in 2012. So it's 11 years later, and I am still fascinated by the topic because whatever that was, I saw it just drew me into this because I'm like, right after I thought, well, I said, I think I just saw Bigfoot to the other people in the car. And then my immediate thought was, well, that's stupid because there's no such thing as Bigfoot, and definitely wouldn't be in Ohio. But that started me thinking, and I'm like, what was it? So I was Googling Bigfoot. Didn't take me long to find out that there were a whole bunch of people that say they've seen them. And I've since learned also pretty quickly that other people had seen them in that same area.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was just absolutely flabbergasted by all of it because I had absolutely no idea that this was even a thing, right? So I started getting into the history of sightings. My favorite thing to look into are the Native American stories and reports of Bigfoot, or, the different names that they call it. And I joined the BFRO for a few years, did some work with them, kind of went off on my own later. And, I'm not somebody that has a lot of sightings or anything like that. I call myself a hopeful skeptic
Hmm.
because most days I absolutely think Bigfoot could be real. There are some days I think that they are real, like I'll be convinced that day, but there I still have my moments of I'm not sure. I've never had a really smoking gun type of a sighting.
Yeah.
But over the years, I just started getting more and more into it, got involved in some different projects. I had one other possible sighting, but it was at nighttime through a FLIR camera. So again, nothing for sure. Heard some strange things and keep looking. I keep going out there hoping for that, absolute proof.
So I've used a FLIR camera once, and those are fun to play with.
They
Um,
sure are.
what exactly did you see through the FLIR camera? Like,
Yeah, so
can you describe it?
absolutely. Yeah, that was in 2018. And I was helping out with an expedition in southern Ohio at the time. We had been there several days and I was tired. And it was like kind of a miserable evening, and everybody was leaving the next day. So I think I was there at least 4 days camping and everything. And I'm like, I think I'm going to head out. And I told the guys who were in charge of the expedition, is it okay if Lester and I leave because we're kind of pooped out here?
Hmm.
And they asked me if I would mind staying because they were going to do one more oh, what do you want to call it? They were going to go out one more time with different teams and see if they could find anything. And there was a couple that wanted to be in a seated team. So they asked, would you mind just going out there one more time? And you can just sit and talk. And, you don't really expect anything to happen. You hope something would happen, but I for one, never expect anything to because usually nothing does happen. So, anyway, long story short, we were sitting there and I was sitting next to the one gentleman, and he was looking through his FLIR camera. And we were at the top part of a power line cut that was going down a hill, and a lot of tall grasses that were matted down. But we were there, in the middle of the night. The night before I had been on the other side of the hill that went down. Like we were up here, it went down. There was a river down here, and it went up.
Yeah.
So the night before I had been on this team, and we had walked through some woods. This time we were over here, and we are just sitting in the on the back, the tailgate of the truck, a few of us, and he all of a sudden hops up and he's like, "What is that? What is that?" And I think I don't know if he hit his head or almost did, and I'm like, what? We're all, there were only four of us there. And we're like, what's going on? What's going on? And it was drizzly, and all of this stuff. And he's like, there's something there. And he starts to give me his FLIR camera. And I'm like, oh, I don't want you to give it to me because, I'm thinking in my head, if you go bird watching or something like that, don't lose sight of whatever it is, or you might not
Yeah.
find it again. Well, he's like, no, you got to look at this. So he gave it to me, and I'm used to when I look through them, I'm used to the things being set to white hot. So whatever
Hmm.
is the hottest is the more white it is on these thermal imagers. And this was set the opposite, it was black hot. And so it took me a minute to figure out what was going on, but something was moving and, directly pretty much in front of us down that little path there was. It was just like a path through all the weeds and grasses,
Yeah.
and you could tell that it was um, getting smaller, so moving away from us. It looked very wide, very tall, but again, you're looking through this camera, and all you could really see was the residual heat from the towers, and over here were trees, and you could see some rocks, residual heat. but
Mhm.
this thing was just walking away from us. It looked like it was moving like we would, like a person, but it just seemed to be large. And the weirdest thing at first was that when it got down to the bottom of that trail or whatever it was on, there's that river. And if you're a human being, you would have to turn around and like rappel down the embankment. You can't
Mm.
just go over there. And this, whatever it was, we were giving it back and forth, went right over and just disappeared. So,
Wow.
we're like, what in the world is that? So, we sent Lester down to go stand where we had first seen it next to that first tower. And as soon as he got to where it was, I'm like, run away. I'm like, get back up here. Because he looked so small compared to it.
Yeah.
Our friends who were over here, we're like, through the walkies, we're like, get back over here. We see something. By the time they had gotten through the woods, this thing was, gone. And so they never got to see it. But they had to like book it back through the woods, get in their cars, come back to us. And one of the guys that was with that team, we call him Big Kevin. He's a good friend of ours. And he's 6'9", I believe, and tall.
Wow.
And we're like, okay, we're going to send you down there, to get a gauge of maybe how big this was. And he walks down, and myself and the other gentleman who were looking through that FLIR, we're like, yeah, stop there. And I will just never forget this because I have never in my life fainted or, had the vapors or anything like that. When I saw him standing there, I like my knees buckled and I had to grab on to the other guy that was with us because I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's 6'9", but he looks so small. And then
Wow.
my skepticism came back in because I'm like, well, we're all excited and emotions are high, and we don't have, this whatever we saw is not standing next to him, so maybe we just think it was taller, but I don't think so. Like I think it was really taller. I don't know what it was. There've been a lot of sightings in that area where we saw it, and I don't know for sure what it was. Again, it's through that camera, but it was all one color. When you were looking at the people, you saw their hats or their jackets,
Yeah.
depending on what clothing they had, they looked different. This didn't. You could see the deer that were behind us very clearly that it was a deer. And what we saw just looked like a big, like humanoid shape walking away from us. And to their credit, the guys who were organizing this event, they separated me and the other gentleman, his name was Jesse, and he says, okay, if I say that, separated us. Like we weren't to talk about it to each other. And they interviewed us separately. They called a few days later, interviewed us again separately. And then I think it was either 2 to 3 weeks later that we all got back together around a campfire and talked about what we had seen. And Lester and I, we got a hotel room that night. Like we didn't even leave the area like we were going to because it was so like nerve wracking. And then they wanted to talk to us, and I wrote down everything. I remember I was like soaking wet by that time, and I'm just sitting there writing down everything that happened. I drew a picture. Jesse did the same back where he and his wife were, and we were, just so shocked when we got back around that campfire a few weeks later, how similar our drawings were, how similar the stories were. It was exciting. I still get excited thinking about it. I'm not sure if it was Bigfoot, but definitely was impressive, an impressive
Yeah.
thing that happened.
So so you're pretty sure you're out pretty sure maybe an understatement that it was much taller than the guy who's
Yes,
6'9",
right.
broadness wise.
That
How would
even
you
more so.
compare? Okay.
Yeah, like the breadth of the shoulders was even more impressive to me. That's what was, I don't want to say scary, but kind of you're out in the dark and there's something really big out there, even though it went
Yeah.
down to the river, yeah, it was a little scary. I guess that is the right word to use,
Yeah.
startling at the very least. But and I get that when I take reports from people, often people talk about the breadth of those shoulders and how that's what's really impressive, not even as much as the height.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, you're sitting there in the dark and, I'm sure the inner child is yelling monster,
Yeah, right.
even though that's what you're looking for. I do paranormal investigations, dealing with
Yes,
hauntings, and same thing when you get that startled moment because you're there not expecting anything to happen.
right.
You're there, you hope
Exactly.
something will happen, so it's not a waste of time, but
Right.
you know,
You
but you
hope,
get
but
that moment.
we really weren't expecting anything. We're like, we're just gonna get wet out here and we'll still have fun. And I enjoyed it either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't it was really startling. It was.
Yeah. No, that's exciting.
Mhm.
So you worked with BFRO. I
Yes.
always have to like spell it out in my head. Bigfoot
Yeah.
Research, Bigfoot
Bigfoot
Field
Field
Research.
Researchers Organization. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
For a
you.
few years. Yeah. And
And
then
then,
went on my own for a
okay.
little bit.
And I saw an association with the Olympic Project.
Yes, it's funny because I had decided, there's so many wonderful people still in the BFRO, a lot of friends still in there. So I just kind of wanted to do my own thing. And I had spent a lot of time following up on their reports and things like that. And I enjoyed it and I learned a lot. But I was like, I'm going to do my own thing now. And I think it was the next day that Shane Corson and Derek Randalls from the Olympic Project got in touch with me and they're like, hey, we'd love you to be a part of our group. And I actually thought about it for a night, which is funny because, it was just such an honor to be asked by them. But I was like, well, how bad can it be? First of all, I love the group and I know them. And secondly, I'm in Ohio and they're out of Washington. So it's not like I'm going to be there all the time. I get there as often as possible, but I'm not going to be there all the time. So yeah, once I really thought about it, I was like, well, that would be really dumb to say no. And I'm so happy I am able to be a part of it. It's just such a wonderful group and a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what does your activity or your experience look like with them
With them,
since you do have to travel to get
yeah,
there?
well, I mean, I'm kind of like a Midwest representative, I guess, and there's a lot of crossover between the Olympic Project and then Project ZooBook, which I know we're going to talk about later. We have a lot of people that are in both. But with the Olympic Project, the first time I went out there, I had just gone with a friend of mine, Barb. She's in the OP, and she asked me to come along because she was just going to visit up there. And they happened to be doing an expedition at the time. So I kind of just sat in the background. I was really impressed with them. It was at their headquarters in Washington State. And just was impressed with this was before they asked me to join or anything, but with how they go about their research, like so methodically, use a scientific method. They I don't know how to express it except that they are just really thoughtful with their research, and I appreciated that. And so I had a kind of a behind the scenes look at what they do, got to know them, went back another time, and then went another few times, out researching. I've been out in Mountain Hood National Park with Shane and some of the Olympic Project guys. Been out in Washington camping, remote camping with Shelley Covington, Montana, who's a part of the Olympic Project, and just did things with different members. And then after they had asked me to be a part of it, and once Project ZooBook started, what was really cool is that a couple of the primate specialists we had in Project ZooBook and I got to fly out to the Olympic Project and look at their nest site that they're involved in. And it was one of the best things I've ever got to do. I think I said earlier that there's some days, I'm not sure about Bigfoot and other days I am. Just being honest about that. I think,
Yeah.
we all have doubts sometimes. But that day, I didn't have any doubts. I was like seeing the look on their faces when they were talking about how similar those nests are to gorilla. nests.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget. I was like, "Oh, no, they're real, and it's just been a lot of fun. They're still doing research in that area, and then another site that they have found more nests at, and doing DNA studies and all kinds of fun stuff. So I wish I could afford to have a little cabin over there and not have to work and be there more often.
I totally understand that.
Yes.
Um, okay, so the nest site that you're talking about, I think this was on one of the Small Town Monsters documentaries. Am I
Yes,
remembering
they
that right?
did. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I probably should have
No,
explained that more.
it's totally fine.
I live and breathe it, so I always, think that everybody knows about it. But yeah, if people want to learn more about it, Small Town Monsters had a series called "On the Trail of Bigfoot," and this documentary they did was called "The Discovery," and it talks all about these nests that were found by a logging company and cannot be explained by several different scientists. I know they brought a bear specialist out there, a wood rat specialist, and nothing can, you know, can nobody can say what this is. Now, we don't even say in the Olympic Project, we don't even say it's Sasquatch. We hope it is,
Right.
it definitely could be, but until you see one making that nest, you're not sure. But it's very, very compelling, very, very compelling.
As yeah, people, if you have not seen that documentary, you definitely need to look it up because just to see the size of the nest and like you said, the looks on people's faces while they're looking at them and they're talking
Yeah,
about them and just it's totally amazing. Even
it
if
is
it's not
amazing.
Sasquatch, it's something made these
It's
nests.
something. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like more scientists should be interested in it because something's doing it. And, the first thing I thought when I heard about them was, well, why couldn't it be people? If
Hmm.
something with an opposable thumb is making these, and that's definitely what it seems like, why couldn't it be people? Well, for one thing, these nests are so remote. Like you have to have the key to get to the gates to get a really decent four wheeler, or truck with four wheel drive or Jeep or something back there. And then once you get back the several gates, then you have to hike and you're going up and down these ridges in the Olympic, national forest in that area. And you are, sometimes belly crawling through the huckleberry bushes, the guy that originally found it had to do. Um, I think if it were some type of a hoax, it would be the dumbest hoax in the world because nobody was likely to find it. And the biggest reason I don't think it's people, besides the fact that some of the nests were more recently made than others, like some were really degraded, but there is some cover from the trees overhead, but it's not like there's some hermits or something living in the woods that would have real good protection from the elements. So I just don't I can't say for sure it's not people. There's no evidence of people being in those nests or near there. But it just doesn't make sense to me and I like things to make sense.
Yeah, and people tend to leave behind
Yeah,
proof that they were there.
wrappers
Yeah,
or
exactly.
yeah,
Usually it's trash, unfortunately.
trash fires, whatever. Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, okay, let's jump into Project ZooBook. You're a co-founder.
Hmm.
How did it get started? What made you start it, and
Oh,
what is it?
I love Project Zoo. It's like my favorite. I don't know which is better, but I'm really proud of it because, I was just in the right place at the right time. I happened to be looking through some different Facebook Bigfoot groups and stuff, and I was helping with an expedition at the time, and I saw that this young lady had asked a question about it, and nobody had answered her. So I had said to one of the people, I was like, "Do you care if I answer her?" And so she and I were messaging. I wasn't Facebook friends with her, had no clue who she was. I was just trying to answer questions about this thing coming up. And it ended up that she was telling me about the fact that she and her coworkers had a little Bigfoot lunch club. And they were super interested in Bigfoot and they read books and listened to podcasts and they really wanted to get out there in the woods and look for Bigfoot. So I had no idea who she was. I'm a teacher. Maybe she was a teacher. Maybe she worked at Target. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not who she was. I found out like within a week or two after we were talking. It ended up they couldn't come on that expedition, and I had said to her, "Well, I'll just take you out sometime. Like it doesn't have to be a expedition. Like you can just go camping and you can look for evidence. It doesn't have to be official." Um, and so we kind of made like rough plans about that. But I found out then she just like dropped this bomb on me that she and her coworkers were, in fact, not teachers and not any other type of workers, but they were the primate department of a zoo.
Whoa.
And and I just remember like literally my jaw dropping when she said that. I'm like, what? Because at least that back then, that was in 2018, I believe. I was not used to scientists or anybody like that taking me seriously.
Mhm.
I get a lot of people that make fun of me. I don't care. Like, I don't care at all because this is my interest. You don't have to like it, whatever. I also know if people would really look into it, they probably wouldn't laugh so much. They would see that there's reasons for why I think the way I do. But I just wasn't used to that. So one thing I'm good at is knowing that there's a lot that I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to get them hooked up with other people who've been doing this longer than I have, who know more about different things than I do. And so I was like, well, why don't we have phone calls? So at first, Project ZooBook started just on conference calls. And I pretty quickly hooked them up with the Olympic Project because to me, that was some of the most exciting scientific research going on. And so Shane Corson was one of the first people that I had brought in to talk to them. And then, time went by, we started bringing more people in. And once Zoom got really popular, then we're like, oh, we could do it through Zoom. So basically, we think of ourselves and call ourselves kind of a think tank about all things Bigfoot. And even sometimes we've done things on like lake monsters and stuff like that, but it's mostly Bigfoot. And now, after 5 years, just through different avenues, I've become very good at reaching out to people. And I have realized that it never hurts to ask. If I meet a scientist or I hear of somebody that might be interested, um, and we have, on any given ZooBook Zoom, not everybody is there, but I counted up one time how many different scientists come and go and, are usually regulars. And we have over 40 scientists in all different fields, wildlife biologists, primatologists, primate zoologists. We have some marine biologists in there. We have law enforcement officials. We have university professors, uh, taxonomists, like all these different people. I call myself the coordinator of the smart people in that group because I basically like try to find people to talk and try to, coordinate what we're doing. But we have different researchers also, like myself, and that do different side projects with different, scientists, and it's fabulously interesting. I've learned so much about gorillas and orangutans and just all these other primates, which is my interest. Like, could Bigfoot be something like that? I don't know if that's true. It could be something else. I don't know, but that's just my interest. So I've learned so much that's been beyond interesting to me. But it's just like the best group of people with a real passion. And I love the fact that these scientists are so open minded because to me, that's true science. Like, go where the evidence leads you. I don't think we've ever had a scientist that came on that wasn't really intrigued because oftentimes they will say, I had no idea that there were so many reports. And I had no idea there was so much footprint, evidence. I had no idea that there was this whole audio database and all of this going on. So once they come in, they're usually kind of hooked. And what's cool is that not only do we have scientists who are open minded and interested, we have several scientists who are witnesses themselves and say they have had an experience. So that's even better. That's like the icing on the cake. But it's
Yeah,
just a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
that is so cool. And I love that you're finding scientists that are open-minded enough to join, to participate, talk,
Yeah.
and that's so cool. So if anybody is interested in Project ZooBook, what's the easiest way to find you?
Well, the easiest way would be to contact me by email. My email is bigfootamy@gmail.com. So nice and easy, AMY. And yeah, email me and tell me your interest. And we're always looking for new scientists and researchers too. But we really want, our goal is to, a lot of the people, a lot of the scientists in Project ZooBook are kind of on the down low,
Mhm.
because what we always say is that they are very interested in Bigfoot, but that doesn't mean their boss necessarily would
Yeah.
be fond of them saying that. Because, a lot of people think we're looking for Smurfs or something like that, is what I equate it to. They just think we're just wacky, but we're not. You know that.
I
You're not
know.
either. And so, um, they're not out of the Bigfoot closet, is what I will often say.
Yeah.
So I'm like, for better or worse, I'm kind of the face of Project ZooBook, and I'm fiercely protective of our scientists who cannot, because of their jobs, come out there. But our goal, our ultimate goal, is to carry on the torch of Dr. John Bindernagel, a beloved wildlife biologist from Canada who passed away a few years ago. But he wanted to make the subject of Bigfoot less taboo,
Mhm.
especially in scientific circles. And so the Olympic Project and Project ZooBook have, like I said, there's a lot of crossover there. But both of those projects I'm involved in really want to make that happen. And slowly, 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 it seems to be happening.
Yeah. And I think it does help that there are some cable shows that have been on, and some of them
Yes,
you can laugh at some of the things you see on the shows, but the point that I take away when I watch those is that there are so many reports and so many witnesses.
yes,
And a lot of times there are people who, like, they live in the woods or they spend a lot
right.
of time camping or hunting, and they know what a bear looks like.
Yes,
They know what a moose sounds like if they're up in the great north, what a
yes,
moose sounds like walking through four legs heavy animal versus two legs heavy animal,
right.
like that's, so it's really hard to discount so many credible witnesses. You can't
It
just throw all
really
that away.
is. You can't. And I'm not the first person to say this. I don't know who was, but only one of those stories has to be real for Bigfoot to be real. And there are thousands of stories. One of my favorite things I do is I used to do a lot more Bigfoot events,
Mhm.
and now I tend to do more outdoor shows. I go to a lot of outdoor shows. I set up my booth. I talk to hunters. I talk to fishermen and women, and I get their stories. And I've gotten so many stories. Like, I wasn't sure how that was going to go, but it has really paid off. People will come and they will tell you their story if you're available to talk to, and if you're not making fun of them.
Yeah.
So got lots of good stories. And yeah, the possibility of it being misidentification goes way down when you're talking to somebody who's out in the woods all the time, out in the forest all the time.
Yeah. And so what do you do with those stories? Are you writing them down, recording them, saving
I
them
write them down.
somewhere?
It depends. I'm very private. So if
Mhm.
a lot of the people, especially that I get through the outdoor shows, they're not part of the Bigfoot community. They haven't ever put the reports other places normally. And many of them ask me not to share those
Mhm.
reports. They don't want to be made fun of. They don't want people on their property or whatever.
Yeah.
Others will be like, yeah, you can share them and you can talk about them, but just don't be really specific. Don't say my name. don't say where it is. And then you have people who are like, I'll tell anybody about it. So I'm in the process of gathering them first for myself because I'm really super interested in it, but ultimately to share the ones that I can because I think it's important for different people to share information. And one of my favorite people that does that is Scott Tompkins with his Bigfoot mapping project. He has an app that is phenomenal if you're into Bigfoot. And so, Scott, if you're listening to this, like I promised him, I'm going to give him the reports that I can, and I've been typing them up because I'm so bad. I have like post-it notes, I have notebooks and stuff, and I just have to get them input. But I'm in the middle of getting that ready for Scott. But yeah, it's really, really exciting to get those reports and basically myself and other people, you put them, I have a big map where I have pinpoints of where the sightings are. So that's where I might go to look
Mhm.
for evidence myself, and we have a couple of taxonomists in Project ZooBook that are taking reports too, and they're doing a big database and taking all that data and putting it in to different algorithms and coming up with some really cool maps themselves. So, yep, I share as much as I possibly can.
That is awesome. But
Yeah.
I love everything you're doing.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
just
I
all
love
so cool.
everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on before I let you go? Because I know you're having a busy night and I want to
Oh,
respect your time.
oh, thank you. A busy night, but a fun night. Lots of cool things going on. Um, well, one thing I'm excited about is I've been trying to finish my book that I've been writing. It's not quite done, but I've worked on it a lot this summer. But it's going to be interesting to people who are into Bigfoot
Okay.
because basically I got together with a gentleman who a lot of people hadn't heard of. And I myself had never heard of him until a few years before I found him again. But his name is Tom Page, and he was a benefactor of sorts to Roger Patterson and Peter Byrne before Roger died. And Tom kind of took over as the money guy after Tom Slick from Texas died. And so Tom was a millionaire from Ohio who was fascinated with Bigfoot. And he had originally been really interested in the Yeti. Then when the Patterson Gimlin film came out, he's like, oh, like there's something I can look at here. He wanted in. And when I had first heard of him, I just heard of him as the person who gave a lot of money toward things. And I
Mhm.
wondered if perhaps there was more to him than that. And when I finally found him, it took me 2 years to find him. Um, I was right. He had a lot of adventures on his own. And the reason that he would, put money toward expeditions and things is because he wanted in on it. So he gave me lots of stories. And I just think that it'll be really interested to those who are interested in the history of Bigfoot. And so I've been trying. He passed away a few years ago. And it was hard for me to continue without him because he and I were kind of doing this together.
Mhm.
And, I was sad for one thing. And then I was just like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do a good enough job for him. But I feel
Yeah.
like his stories need to be told. And Peter Byrne just recently passed away too. So, in honor of Peter, I want to get this out also.
Yeah. Um, when it's out,
Mhm.
you are absolutely invited to come back on the
Thank
podcast.
you. I would love
or
that. Thank you.
or if there's, anytime you've got something new to talk about,
Okay.
I'd love to
Thank
have you back on,
you.
but especially with a book, because as
Yeah,
a
I'm
fellow
excited.
writer, I know how much work goes into
Yes.
that. And when you're
Yes,
dealing with real stories, it's even more work because you want to make sure
it
everything's
is.
accurate.
Yes, it is, and it's just like, oh, what if I get something wrong? But I have lots of conversations that he allowed me to tape between us, so I at least have those to go back and refer to. So I'm like, okay, gave me different videos and different manuscripts and things that he had. So I just get nervous that I'm doing the best job, but I'll do the best job I can.
Yeah, and that's all anybody is going to expect of you,
Yeah.
and just to be able to put those stories out there is going to be so important.
Yeah, it will be, I think. I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight. I have truly enjoyed this conversation, and
Me
I hope that we
too.
can do this again.
I hope so too. I have too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Amy for joining us, and thank you for listening. If you're interested in sharing your own personal paranormal experiences, or if you have an idea for an episode topic, please reach out through the contact form at peeppodcast.com. That's PEEP podcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter to keep up with the podcast and all my creative and energetic endeavors. I only email it once a month. You'll receive briefs on recent episodes, information on any upcoming appearances, and we are getting into that season for me, news, and some additional fun stuff. For example, I've been asked to be one of the speakers for the Wake County Public Library's Haunted Carolina program again in October. And in the next issue, I'll share the dates and times for the 5 libraries I'll be presenting at. So if you're local, you can come. If you enjoy the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app, share it with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Ratings and reviews help the podcast be found by others. A huge thank you to everyone who has given the show some love. I truly appreciate it. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, financial support through the donate button on the website, or any other way, I absolutely appreciate your being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.